Welcome to Weird Web Radio, an explorer's guide to hidden worlds of the paranormal and occult, reality-expanding experiences, and the downright weird and bizarre. With your host, Lonnie Scott.
And we are recording. Theresa Reed, welcome to Weird Web Radio. It is awesome to have you here.
Hey, Lonnie, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm super happy to hear that. And before we even get into anything, I have to give a big shout out to Gia over at Weiser for hooking up this conversation. Gia's done a wonderful job for me, and she does a wonderful job for all of you out there, making sure that you get great content. So thank you, Gia.
Yep, I want to say a big thank you too. Gia seems to really have the mad hookup, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd say so too. So for everyone listening who may not know who Theresa is, here's a quick little hit on her bio. Theresa Reed, aka the Tarot Lady, which by the way is how I knew who you were as the Tarot Lady. Been getting that newsletter for quite some time. Worked as a full-time tarot card reader for 30 years. She is the author of many books, including her latest, Twist Your Fate, Manifest Success with Astrology and Tarot. She also hosts two educational podcasts, Tarot Bites and Astrology Bites, which have been downloaded by millions of people around the world, in addition to writing, teaching, and podcasting. Theresa runs a popular website, thetarotlady.com, where she dishes out advice, inspiration, and tips for tarot lovers of all experience levels. I'm a tarot lover. I love your newsletter. It's not even always my style, and that's cool with me because there's so many inroads to tarot, you never know what you'll get. So listen up, folks. Please go subscribe to that.
Well, thank you for that. You know, it's so interesting. There's so many tarot voices out there and so many different ways of looking at it. And even though tarot's been around for, a long time, there's a lot of tradition behind it. I'm always really interested in other people's points of views. Even ones that I don't know about that. Well, let me think about it, though. Let me think about it, because later on, I might find I get a real aha moment. I like to say I'm a Gemini. I'm supremely curious, and I always want to know, why do people read a certain way? What are they reading? What deck are they reading with? Why? So I tend to read a lot of tarot books because of that.
I tend to do the same. Tarot, I joke all the time. It's kind of a joke, kind of not, but I say all the time that tarot is my occult drug of choice.
Yes. Well, I'm like, I like to do both. I love tarot and I love astrology. I can go down an astrology rabbit hole and get myself wrapped up in that and drive my poor husband nuts when I'm going on one of those tangents. But if I have to pick between the two of them, I always say tarot is down and dirty. It gets you the answers much quicker. And that is what I love about tarot. So tarot's always the one I will turn to.
Agreed. Yep. It is definitely my jam. And we're going to get to tarot, but I want to take a little turn here at the beginning. The rule around Weird Web Radio is we want to know, have you ever experienced a haunting?
Yes.
Fuck
absolutely.
Yes.
I grew up in a creepy old house.
Perfect.
And I also grew up with a very psychic mother and a very psychic grandmother. And hauntings and ghosts and dreams and prophecy and omens, these were all things that I grew up with. We never thought anything of it. I assumed everybody felt these things. And one of my grandmothers also was really, really religious. So she would, anytime there was a storm, she'd be like lighting the candles, dragging us all out of bed and, doing her prayers and whatnot. And it always felt kind of spooky. But we had definitely some beings in that house. It's not something that I've ever felt like really scared about. And also, when the grandmother, the religious one, passed away, she actually was in my bedroom. And and I was a very little girl at the time, 9 years old. But I had an apparition with her. And again, it wasn't anything weird to us because, that's, just, it's a ghost or it's a spirit, or all of that stuff was really normal for me. I just didn't realize that a lot of other people didn't have those experiences.
Yeah. So creepy old house.
1800s.
Nice. Is there any particular experience? I mean, other than, when your grandmother passes and things like that, something that you encountered growing up in that house that really solidified it for you. Like there's something more to all of this?
The grandmother visit was the thing that solidified it.
Okay,
Because remember, I was very young then. And
that's
I mean,
true.
we had those feelings and vibes and this and that, but that solidified it for me because first of all, it's something I'm familiar with as a little girl. That's your
Hmm.
grandmother. And so having her come to me after she had passed, and we shared the same bedroom, by the way, too, just for reference. And so my sister and grandmother and I were all in the same room. And so when she passed away, it also wasn't a surprise to have her presence in the room because we shared that room. So all of it again felt very natural, but it did solidify it because again, it's something familiar. It's something that was very real to me. I can still remember that. I can still remember the sensation of feeling her hand on my face, waking me up. And it's like, oh my God, it's grandma. And, that wasn't something that was looked at as a weird thing. I've had other, to other people it's weird. It's not weird to me though. So I got to keep saying that. I've had
Yeah.
another, I've had experiences too, like in this house when my cat passed away, the cat coming into the bed, laying down, and you see the bed sink where the cat used to sleep, and you see it happening, and it's like, oh, spirit of the cat is still here. And again, it's not weird to us.
Right.
So yeah, plenty of ghostly experiences, and I
That's
always love
fantastic.
that. And I've got to tell you about my brother's one experience.
Oh,
Okay, so
do tell.
I've got a brother. Now, my brother is actually pretty psychic, but he's really like he's one of those people that discounts it, like doesn't really he'll blow it off like it's no big deal, but he's actually very, very psychic.
Hmm.
And when my mother was dying, he was in his kitchen and he said, all of a sudden I saw all these silver orbs coming from behind me, and they came out in front of me, and they stayed in front of me for a moment, and then they went out the window. And then Bill called and said that she had passed away. Do you think that was her spirit? I'm like, yes, yes, of course. He goes, probably not. But I mean, imagine an experience like
Probably
that.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, seeing things like that. So that again, none of the ghostly stuff, apparitions, any of that. Some people get really freaked out. For our family, it's kind of like, no big deal.
Hmm.
Spirit.
Now you did say, brother psychic,
Mhm.
mom, grandma, like this is a family thing.
It's a family thing. We have some
Yeah.
family traits. One is we all know how to drink. Okay. The other thing is in the family, we've got a lot of people with really psychic abilities. And we also have bent little fingers, which
Oh,
is
you
a
do.
family trait. And this is not broken fingers. My brother has them. My mother had them. My niece has them. I have them. So it's also kind of like the weird trait. But the intuition thing, it's something that's extremely natural for us.
Hmm. I mean, have you done much ancestry research? Have you found like maybe clues how far back that goes? Maybe a reason why even?
Well, my daughter's totally into genealogy. Now, I'm only
Yeah.
like half interested in it, but she's gone way back. And so we've had, I mean, God, such interesting people in our family tree. A couple of nuts in the tree, too. We had one of our relatives was an anarchist, and I'm very politically aligned with that. And he tried to stop the post office. So that's one of
Okay.
our relatives, which is really strange.
Right.
We've had relatives that came over on the Mayflower. We had relatives that came during the potato famine. It's always like they're trying to escape. There's always these people trying to escape
Mm.
or to buck authority. So we have a lot of that in the family. And she traced it way back. I mean, so far back. She's like, hey, I think we're related to Charlemagne. And I'm like, you mean Charlemagne the God, the cool DJ? And she's like, no, not him. The guy, the conqueror, So we go way back to those things. I don't know if I would say there's anything that necessarily is aligned to all the intuition stuff, but
Hmm.
certainly one of the themes was people wanting to escape.
Yeah.
They want to get out.
It's interesting when you find those kinds of themes in that sort of research because, I myself, I hold leadership positions in an organization called The Troth. I've been on their
Cool.
board of directors known as the High Reed. I'm currently a Midwest steward. I'm a Troth ambassador. We're an international inclusive heathen organization. And in all my pull towards leadership, I've always found myself in leadership, especially in spiritual circles. They joked when I was in like 8th grade, I was going to be most likely to like lead a cult one day. And here I am with my podcast, you fuckers. Anyway, when I started getting into ancestry research, one thing I kept finding over and over again were people who were the leaders of their church. The people who took
Interesting.
the people, like it was my ancestors, some down one of those many lines, as you know, you get a lot of them in a hurry, that brought their church to this new area, that became the lifetime leader of this other church, and so on and so on. There were a lot of spiritual leaders in my ancestry on both sides, maternal and paternal, which just it's curious to me how it works that way, because here I am, certainly not expressing it in any Christian format, but still following that kind of an ancestral way of sorts, finding myself in spiritual leadership. I found that odd.
Well, we had a reverend in our family on my mother's side of the family. My mother seems to have more of the colorful characters than dad's side of the family. But again, there's always been this theme, like a theme of rebellion, running away. And I am super rebellious. I'm a total lone wolf. I'm not somebody who likes to belong to anything. And so that, again, really is something I think is in the blood,
Yeah,
without a doubt.
there must be something that carries down the line that way, because there's some strange traits. But
There
anyway,
is. There is.
um, let's get to your book. How about that?
Yeah, right on.
So, Twist Your Fate, Manifest Success with Astrology and Tarot. Now, I must admit, astrology, like we were talking about before we started recording, astrology was never my jam. It was always that thing I skipped over. I knew where to find my horoscope and never really paid all that much attention to it. Somewhere along the way, someone called astrology space weather and said anybody working magic should probably be aware of some of it. So I subscribed to a couple of newsletters and largely don't pay that much attention to them, to be honest, when it comes to the astrology. I'm way more interested in tarot and things of that nature. So when I got your book, I decided I was going to take an honest approach at it for a change and not skip over that section. And I was surprised. Pleasantly so. Very pleasantly surprised. So there's the sun sign that everybody knows, right? That's what
Yep.
people find in the newspapers, right? Okay, kids, there used to be these things called newspapers.
Yeah, nobody knows what that is anymore,
Yeah.
Lottie.
Yeah, they have movie listings and your horoscope in them. Neither of those things you give a shit about anymore, right? So there's the sun sign. Everybody knew that. What I didn't know was there was something called the ascendant, and there's a moon. Where's the moon's influence? And there's all these houses. Totally, freely admitting I had really no clue about any of this, and I found it very interesting. How did you get your start into astrology? Because it's been such a big part of your life. Do you remember how you got your first dip into it?
Absolutely. And by the way, for me, astrology came first, not tarot. So
Okay.
I find for a lot of people, tarot people will dip into astrology, but mine happened the opposite. And I discovered it when I was a teenager, and I never get sick of the thinking about that whole moment in my life. Sometimes we don't think about those things, how pivotal they are. And I think about it all the time. I was a typical teen trying to figure out, oh, who am I? Blah, blah, blah. And I was friends with a fellow outcast, and her mother happened to be an astrologer. And which was really odd because I grew up in a rural area where that kind of thing was like far out. But I was a weirdo anyway. So of course I'm going to be drawn to anything that is not the norm. And we became friends, and her mother said, I'm going to do your astrology chart. I'm like, oh, okay. I've seen horoscopes in the newspaper like most people. I read Cosmo. Of course I read those horoscopes in there, but it was just sun sign stuff. And so she did my chart, and the things she was saying made a lot of sense to me. I'm like, this makes a lot more sense than anything my parents are telling me. Bam, I'm going to start studying this. And I'm one of those people, when I get into something, I really get into it. And so I got into it. And by the way, when she passed away, I inherited her astrology books, which are my most treasured possessions.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so that is how I got into astrology, just by having the good fortune of having a friend whose mother was an astrologer. And from there, it led to tarot. And I started studying them both at the same time. And that means I've been now studying tarot and astrology for 42 years. Long time.
Right? I'm 45. So since I was 3.
And you know what? You never stop learning either. I mean,
Yep.
I'm almost 60 and I still find myself getting blown away by other people's discoveries or maybe things about astrology or tarot that I didn't bother to learn back in the day.
Mm,
I'm always blown away by it. You never stop
yeah.
learning.
So here's the thing. So the sun sign is what everybody pretty much is accustomed to. They all know. Like
Yep.
this, when I got into bartending, I was in the bar business for a long, long time. And when I started out as a bouncer and then went on to bartending, one of the things I would do with checking IDs, if I thought it was a fake ID. Now, anyone out there listening who's not old enough to go in the bars, shame on you if you try. But here we go. But one way I would bust them out, I'd say, "Oh, what's your sign?"
Mm-hmm.
Because most people know what their sign is to get their horoscopes. They don't know what their fake ID sign is, their friend's ID or whatever. And it's a good way to bust people out. The way you were just talking, you said, "Oh, it's just the sun sign." Like the sun sign doesn't carry, well, obviously it doesn't carry all the information you would want out of one of these charts. It's not even close to being the most important thing, is it?
Well, I think the sun is very important. I think every astrologer has. My cat has decided to join us. He's an
That's
Aries, by the
fine.
way.
Cats
He's
are welcome.
extremely aggressive. So that's what's going on here. But your sun sign is really important because the sun sign is your base personality. It is the core of who you are. It's also your purpose. It's what you're here to do. And so it is very important. But there are certain things that different astrologers might see equally as important.
Mhm.
My friends Monty Farber and Amy Zerner said the celestial trilogy, all three of them are just as important. And that would be the
Mhm.
sun, the moon, and the rising. The rising was also the ascendant. So all three of them are important. But, a lot of astrologers will say, but the sun sign is probably super, super, super important because, that's the day you were born, the sun was shining on you, yada, yada,
Mhm.
yada. It's your basic personality. Now, my opinion, I'm really into the moon. The moon
Okay.
to me is something I think is so, so important. Do I think the sun is important? Yes. Do I think the ascendant is important? Yes. Do I think the midheaven is important? You betcha. But the moon is so much about your emotions. It's about how you feel, how you express your feelings. It's about the things that are emotionally important to you. It tells a lot about parenting, how you need to be parented, how you love, all of those things. And I think when we understand people's moons, we know how to show up for them in a way that's going to make them feel good. And I
That's
think that's
interesting.
really important. So I'm
Yeah.
all about, listen, I'm one of those people too, when they talk about compatibility, I'm like, compatibility in astrology is kind of bogus because you can have compatible charts, but if you don't respect the other person's emotions, if you don't expect their upbringing, their lived experiences, it doesn't matter if your charts are compatible. It's not going to work. You got to
Okay.
look at the moon. You got to look at that person's lived experiences, and you got to think, okay, how can I show up in this relationship in a way that's going to be healthy for both of us? That's going to honor this person's emotional needs, respect them, and that's the key to good relationships. The moon.
So when you find the moon in your chart, I
Mhm.
guess you're looking to see what house is it in, right?
That too. The
That's
sign
the
in the house.
extent of my knowledge right there. So you're looking for that crescent moon somewhere in one of those houses. I can see how that would be important for other people, but thinking about just finding that information for yourself. Let's say I
Mm.
go looking and I find my moon wherever it happens to be. How do I apply that knowledge
Mm.
best for me?
Well, once you know what makes you feel happy and fulfilled, I mean,
Tarot cards.
yeah, tarot card. I mean, really, that helps a lot. Knowing yourself is the key to a really good life. Knowing yourself is the key so that you are not making decisions that are not aligned with your highest good or what feels right for you. And so I think astrology is really like that little bit of a roadmap. And the moon, again, can tell you a lot about what you need emotionally. I'll give myself as an example. I've got a moon in Scorpio, which, by the way, is considered the worst moon according to astrologers. I don't buy that.
Why would that be the worst
Ah,
moon?
because it's really intense.
Sounds bogus.
Yeah, it's really intense, and supposedly it makes you like super vindictive and all of that and really jealous, which by the way, I'm like the least jealous person you ever meet. I'm just one of those people. It's like either we're hot, we're cold. It's we're in or we're not. So I think that can make people misunderstand it. But knowing how my moon is, that means for me it's important to have depth and passion. It's also important for me with the moon in Scorpio. I got to have a lot of time by myself. Again, I blow hot and cold. And being by myself doesn't mean I'm dissing you. It just means I need my little space right now. And so my
Gotcha.
family, my children understand that. My husband understands that. We all get along like peas in a pod because we recognize what the other needs. Now, my son is a moon in Gemini. My son needs to talk. He needs to talk it out. He needs conversation. He needs mental stimulation. When he was a little boy, he needed all the mentally stimulating things around him. My daughter's got a moon in Taurus. Moon in Taurus people, they need stability. They need to know that when you say you're coming at 8 o'clock, you're coming at 8 o'clock. No ifs, ands, and buts, no excuses. And again, this is how we really figure out what makes you happy. What makes me happy? Depth. What makes my son happy? Mental stimulation. What makes my daughter happy? Security. What is my husband like? My husband's got a moon in Aries. He likes fire. He likes feistiness. He likes some excitement and danger, So, of course, we get along great, That's what you look at. And then you got to look at the house it's in. The house will also tell you the areas that are also very emotionally important to you. So you look at that, and that's going to tell you a lot.
That's true.
So what's your moon in?
Banging on shit next to us. I hope that's not coming through. Can you hear any of that?
Nope, I can't hear a thing.
All right, good. I don't know what they're doing. Stop it. My moon, I used the website in the book that you recommended, astro.com.
Yep.
And if I'm reading this right, my moon is in the 4th house, and that funky symbol is referencing this awesome book I found. Is Capricorn.
Moon in Capricorn. That's interesting because, like the moon in Scorpio, guess what? That gets a bum rap too.
That does?
My God! Oh,
we're just a couple bumps on the.
That's why we're getting along. When you read about now, I'm the defender of all Scorpio things for one, and I'm the defender of moon and Capricorn people because the moon in Capricorn is considered, it's aloof, it's cold, it's all ambition. I'm like, that's not true. That's not true. The moon in Capricorn people, you got to earn their trust. That's really an important thing. So it's not that they're cold. They just got to make sure you're not going to be a douche. Mm-hmm. That's it. You've got to show that you are trustworthy, that you are who you say you are, that you're authentic, that you're not also expecting them to do all the heavy lifting. They're looking for people who are their equals. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. And a moon and Capricorn person, when they say they're going to be there for you, boom, they are there. They are there.
I think I wear that pretty well. I'll take that. It sounds
They're
like
very
me.
solid. They're good leaders. They're good at getting people together. They're good at managing other people. Moon and Capricorn people, they get stuff done. I mean, what's not hot about that? Why would that be a bad thing? And I think the bad thing that people see is they're like, oh, they're kind of cold. It's like, they're not cold. You got to earn their trust. Duh.
Well, if anyone out there thinks I've acted cold or something to them, I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't know I did it. Send me an email, weirdwebradio@gmail.com, and I will apologize.
You don't strike me as somebody who's cold at all. But again, if you read astrology books on their own, sometimes you'll get these things. And it's like, no, that's not the way it works. And we can always choose the high vibe and low vibe. Now, with the moon in Capricorn, let's say you decide you're going to really go with the negative side of it because everything has a positive and negative, just like tarot. The sun isn't always great. The sun card, I love seeing that, but you can get burned by the sun too if you get too much of it.
Been there, done that.
Exactly. And so when you look at the moon, let's just use your moon in Capricorn. If you go to the negative side of the moon in Capricorn, then that means you don't let anybody in. Nobody gets in. Nobody gets close. Nobody gets to know you. You put a wall or a fortress around your heart. That's something you could choose to be. I mean, you can always choose to go to the positive and negative side of anything. But once you understand it and you look at, okay, what is the gift, the blessings? What are the good things in these different signs? What can I work on? that's when it all becomes magic. It's the same, like also one thing in astrology, Saturn gets a bad rap too. Notice we always talk
Oh
about the
yeah.
bad rap stuff. Oh, everyone's like, oh, Saturn's so terrible. I'm like, Saturn, here's the deal. It's a hard taskmaster. But if you use it to create order in that part of your life, boom, the magic happens. Saturn loves structure. Saturn loves order. So, work with it. Like Tim Gunn says, make it work.
Right. Now I found that interesting the way you broke down that cold, distant part have to earn somebody's trust where it concerns the moon in Capricorn. Reason being, well, one, we were talking about it because my moon's in Capricorn. When I was growing up, people thought I was shy, that I
Mm-hmm.
was cold, that I was distant, that I wasn't interested. Go to family gatherings, things like that, meeting people. I wasn't great at making friends early on in life or connecting to people, mostly because I didn't trust them.
Yep.
Now, I had a lot of reasons for mistrusting people, but I overcame them. By the time I ended up in the bar business as a bartender when I'm 21, it it was an insight real fast that there's a lot more joy in life to connect to other people, and that's how I overcame a lot of that perceived shyness. And I don't really have much of that anymore. But yeah, I just found that interesting because I think it's fair to say that I definitely started off early in my life fitting that description pretty well.
Well, I've got that moon in Scorpio, which is really intense. And I was a child, I was very volatile. So I have a very hot temper. And a lot of people would never guess that because I tend to be kind of happy go lucky. I have an extremely violent temper. Now,
Mm.
it's gotten under control thanks to old age and really doing a lot of work on that. But when I was young, I did not express my anger in a healthy way. And that's very moon in Scorpio. I mean, when I am mad, that is the one thing I just lose it. I'm one of those people. And it's really funny because my husband, and this is that moon in Aries, he likes fire. He loves it when I get pissed. When I
Oh.
get angry, he's like, that is the hottest thing, so he likes the fire. But what happens for me then, and I rarely get that angry anymore, but I always feel bad afterwards because I will do or say something then that isn't very nice, and I don't like that. I love to be kind. Kindness is really important, but when I'm pissed, it's like something happens, something snaps, and I go ballistic. It's not something
Yeah.
I mean, I can joke around right now and say, oh, it's pretty funny, but it's really caused harm back in the day. And it's like, you got to choose. Am I going to be this angry girl who's getting all violent, or am I going to use that anger as fuel and energy for work, for other
Mm-hmm.
things? And so I've learned it's got to be a fuel, not something to burn everything down.
Yeah. That,
That's the negative side again.
again.
And
Yep.
I mean, I used to get lectured all the time for my temper, and it's not a good temper. I remember also when I was in drama class in high school, the teacher at the end of the class gave everybody candy. And it was candy that would say, oh, here's a candy bar because you're so sweet. She gave me a box, I'll never forget this, of Red Hots. And she said, here, that's for your red hot temper and mine.
Oh.
I mean, you're giving this to
Yeah.
a 16-year-old kid. I'm like,
Yeah.
thanks. I don't even like Red Hots, but that just shows you that's where I was when I was young. Very, very angry. Took a
Yeah.
lot to tame that fire. A lot of work
Now
on yourself.
that's true, and people actively should. Um, I'm a professional hypnotist.
Mm.
People come to me for all kinds of issues, anger being one of them. And yeah, it's difficult to make some of those changes. And I think that leads nicely into one of the criticisms you often hear about astrology. I just read today, like a friend of mine was posting something on Instagram about the stars and following, how mankind's followed them for years and
Hmm.
so on, or, since who probably looked up and realized that, they're not stuck where they're at. And it turned into this soft punch of sorts at astrology, saying, that's the problem with astrology. It's trying to say you have this fixed fate. Now, I don't necessarily think
Nope.
that's true, and I may have carried some of that misunderstanding myself for quite some time. So let's help people overcome that, I guess. this idea of fixed fate versus free will when it comes to astrology.
Well, I'm going to say this has to do with astrology, tarot, and any type of intuitive stuff in general.
Sure.
Um, you know, it's all energy. It's all energy. The currents are always running around you, within you, but you still have to show up and do the work. And there are some things in life that are fated. Like I can't dictate the the family I was born into. Believe me, I would have chosen a different group. There's certain things we can't choose that happen. And sometimes there's things that happen in our life that happens to us. We're in the wrong place at the wrong time. There are things we cannot totally explain. Why are certain people in my life? But no matter what is happening in the cosmos, no matter what tarot cards you draw, no matter what your experiences and what you're born into, you still have some choices. You have choices that you can make that are going to shape your life. And that's where this stuff really helps you. If you are aware of the energy that's operating right now in the cosmos, awesome. Now you know. Today, we've got a moon going into Scorpio, in fact, very soon. So I know the next couple of days are going to be great for psychic work, good for research, good for working behind the scenes. Awesome. Now I can plot my day out and not waste my time doing unproductive energy. I know if there's a Mercury retrograde. All right, Mercury retrograde. You know what? I'm going to back up my damn computer. I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm working with the energy rather than against it. And the same with your astrology chart. You got stuff laid out. Now you got a little map. Now you got to decide where you're going to go with this. All right. Am I going to go with this negative stuff or am I going to go with the positive stuff? Is this chart going to work for me or I'm going to make it work for me? You've got to really think like that. All of this stuff is information. It's intel. It's clues. And again, ultimately, you still have to make some decisions. And so I believe, again, I straddle both. There are some things that are fated, but you got a lot of room in there. And one of my favorite examples is I have a dear, dear friend who passed away a couple of years ago. We were born a day and a year apart. We're like brother and sister, thick as thieves. We had psychic experiences. He's one of the only people I have telepathy with. And he could be across the room. We could read each other's minds. We were like, we should have been brother and sister. We were so connected and friends for many, many, many years. Now we had very different, even though we had very similar astrology charts, very different upbringing. He had a loving family. He came from a family with money. He was tall, handsome, amazingly talented drummer, funny as hell. Me, I grew up from a poor family. We didn't have money. We didn't have anything. Our family was supremely dysfunctional. And, I didn't have like all the opportunities for college, none of the things that this guy had. And even though we're born a day and a year apart and we have similarities in our astrology chart, my chart is considered quote unquote a bad chart. His chart, fabulous, much better things. So now when you start looking at it, it's like, oh, now if you are an astrologer who's just going by those books, you're going to look at that and say, this guy's got everything going for him. He's got a great life. Oh, her? She's probably going to struggle all her life. The difference is, though, I'm serious. I've had astrologers give me these terrible readings that made me sound like I was doomed. And I'm like, that's not how this works. Well, anyhow, what ended up happening with me and my friend is we had our challenges, of course. And he always had people to bail him out and help him out. I didn't. And I made some really good choices in my life. I worked really hard to overcome what I had been handed. And he ended up dying a homeless drug addict.
Damn.
He made some terrible choices.
Yeah.
It didn't matter that he had a good astrology chart. It didn't matter that he had a family that loved him. None of that mattered because he made that one decision, got into that, got hooked, and boom, that was his path then. Could it have changed at any time? We did intervention on him a couple times, but he went back to it. There's still a choice. Now, when you get addicted, of course, there's not really a choice in the long run, but there's still always that one choice that leads you down a path. And so you can look at these two charts and say, well, this one's, and it didn't work out that way. Why? Awareness. Looking at the gifts, looking at the blessings, looking at the problems. And I just looked at the charts like, oh, you got to stop flaking off. Oh, you got to start getting responsible. Oh, you got to stop doing this and being impulsive. There were a lot of things I had to work on, and that red hot temper, red hot violent temper. So everything I'm doing great. And he's no longer with me. And I'm still, by the way, very haunted with that because we were such good friends. He's been gone a couple of years now. And his life could have been different. He had all the stars, all the looks, all the love, But again, you still have the free will to go mess that up. And you have the free will to turn things around anytime. You can change your life anytime. It doesn't even matter. You can change your life. And then there are also some people who have other experiences. There are things like systemic racism, oppression that makes it much harder. And those people have to look for other avenues. But we can still use tarot and astrology and our free will to make different choices.
Okay, yeah. No, I dig it. I'm really sorry to hear about your friend like that.
Oh,
That's terrible. My heart goes out to you.
it's hard.
Yeah, I've got a friend who is still alive currently, heading head first down that path, and it's really hard to see and it's hard to watch, and I've tried everything I can think of and more to stop it, but what are you gonna do?
All you can do is love them and pray and hope for the best. And I will
Yeah,
say that there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't miss my friend.
yeah, I
It's
can
a
imagine.
hard thing to swallow, especially when you see that potential, not just astrologically, but just in general. And it's like, wow, and again, it comes back to this free will thing. And I just think of that. I think of a lot of things. I'm always thinking, but there's just so many things that could work out differently. And there's so many things when I was on a not so great path that could have worked out really, really tragically. But
Sure.
my intuition has always been remarkable, and making some different choices
Yeah.
made a huge
Oh,
difference.
I agree. So I like what you're saying here. Just knowing how to read that chart for one, and boy, oh boy, is there a lot on there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
your astrology chart, here's the deal with it. And this is what I say all the time. Your astrology chart is a map. Now, this is going to tell you your potential. It's going to tell you, again, your problems, what you need to work on, all of that stuff. And then the current transits in the sky, that's the traffic. So you got the map, and now you know what the traffic is. So now we know how to drive, and we know how we drive best. And when you go deeper into astrology, much deeper, your progress chart shows the kind of car you're becoming, the kind of driver you're becoming. And so that's
Hmm.
another layer. And then you've got tarot to show you all the detours. Now, why wouldn't you want to use this GPS? That's what all this stuff is. It's GPS to
Yeah,
navigate your life so it can be better, so you can find comfort, relief, better ways of doing things.
I like that. We took a bit of a dark turn there, so let's bring it
Well,
back.
here's the one thing though. Life, this is one thing I don't like it if tarot readers and astrologers only focus on the good things. Life is hard sometimes.
Oh,
Life
I
can be
agree.
damn hard. And you know what? Every time my life has taken a hard turn, tarot has always been the thing that's got me out.
Yeah, tarot has been such an enormous part of my life that transformed so many things, from connections to other people, opening doors that didn't even know existed before I got into tarot. Uh,
Yes.
I mean, literal taste of fame because of tarot cards. I mean, I don't use them just to. I know people I've had clients that I've had to kind of fire because I felt like it was getting to the point where they're like, no decision will be made without those cards. Like that's not a healthy way to do it either.
Mm-mm.
But
I agree.
I have you ever had this is something that happened to me. One of the most freakiest things with tarot, where how everyone says the death card isn't death, it's change, it's transformation. Have you ever had it just simply mean death?
I don't think in my life, not for me.
No? Well, good.
Mm.
I have once.
Usually when there's death coming for me, it's all the good cards.
Really?
It's never ever the death card. It's never anything scary. It's always like, oh, the sun. Then boom, someone dies.
What?
Well, you know what it is. I think a lot of it has to do. Well, the one thing is, I think a lot of it has to do with perspective, though, on death. And for me, I'm one of those people that I think, wow, when we check out, we are going to a better side, a better thing. This is a time for celebration. I think that we live in a very death adverse culture. We live in a grief adverse culture. We tend to look at it like this scary, painful, negative, horrible thing. And I'm like, no,
Hmm.
no, 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 no. This is like birth. You're just going on to another phase now. And sure, there might be pain, but ultimately it is a graduation. And so I think for me, that's why I tend to always, anytime I've done a reading and it's been about death for people, it's been like the sun, all this good stuff. And I think it's because, again, I view it as a spiritual graduation. I don't view death in the same way most people view it.
Gotcha.
And by the way, just to be clear, I also grew up in a gigantic family, 13 on mom's side, 9 on dad's, and every one of them had like 6 to 8 kids. So there were funerals happening constantly. So I got quite accustomed with that. And when there was funerals, it meant we got to get together and eat cake and stuff. So that was a perspective early on that, again, really gave me a different way of looking at it. So maybe that's why I get that. So I want to hear about you just pulling a death card and having something.
Walking around the house, just, I wish somebody died. I had cookies.
But I want to hear about your death card.
Yeah, no, it's well known. At least everyone locally knows about this because it cost me money. I used to do tarot parties, and then COVID came. I haven't done any since COVID. Yeah. And I'd get booked to go into a place, and I'd always give the host a free reading, and then you have to have X amount of people there before I'm going to show up, and a place in private to do the readings and whatnot. And I had a big one booked where my mom works. Where she worked at the time. She worked at this big assisted living place. And she wanted a tarot reading, and I was giving her one at her kitchen table just sitting there. And I'm doing my spiel, my usual thing, and it's the first time I've ever read for my mom. I think I've read for her one more time after this. She was scared after this for a long time. So I'm reading for her, and the gist that I kept getting at was that, like, the thing that was holding her back had to die. The death card's looming over the certain area of my spread, telling me something has to die for you to move forward. Like, you are everything that you're trying to accomplish, feel freedom, yada yada. Like, there's something that holding her back, and it had to die. And I'm staring at this card, going, "What the fuck is it talking about?" And I looked at her, I'm like, "Mom, I'm not sure what it's talking about." And my dad walked across the room. And I got this cold chill down my back. I'm like, no. Well, he was dead 3 weeks later. Yeah.
Wow.
So, that tarot party was canceled. Everyone was scared of me after that.
I'll bet. That kind of stuff freaks people out again. And you hear a lot of stories about that with tarot readers. Here's another thing about my weird household. So my mother, she had her own omen when there was going to be a funeral. And what would happen is she would hear the doorbell ring, and so would the dog. Nobody else would hear it. She'd go to the door, open the door. There's no one there. It was all so dramatic. She had a moon in Leo. My mother was very dramatic. She'd slam the door. So she said, "There's going to be a funeral." Like, all like really. And we'd all be like, and of course, within 3 days, there'd be a funeral. And of course, the logical side of me says, well, you have a giant family. Of course, someone's going to be dying all the time.
Right.
But that was her omen. That was her thing. And for me, again, whenever I've had a reading about that, it's never the death cards. Always been good cards, or the 8 cups. They're going away. I did a reading for somebody once who was really dealing with some also drug problems, and the cards were great. And the person was gone a week later, and the family was really mad. They're like, "How did that person get all the good cards?" It's like, that's how it shows up in my readings. Your friend is no longer in pain. They graduated.
It is interesting how the cards speak to all of us who read
differently. We have our own language.
Yeah, they do. I change my mind frequently on what I think the mechanism is behind it. But ultimately, for me, I just think, like, you've got 78 cards there that could come out in any combination based on how many you're going to draw. And any combination of them can be meaningful to the person sitting across from you. It's just that I think the ones that pop out happen to be the most relevant at this time.
Absolutely. And I also think for us as readers, and this is where, again, you see all these different nuances. Everybody's got also their lived experiences that they're bringing into those readings. There's different symbols that are going to mean different things to different people based on their background, based on what they've studied in their life. So there might be some traditional meanings, but the information is going to be transmitted differently based on the reader for those different perspectives. And it's the same thing. That's why you'll find also some people will go to a reader and they're like, "Oh my God, Lonnie was the greatest ever." Somebody else goes to Lonnie like, I didn't really feel it. It's because you're not speaking the same language that they understand. And I had to explain that so many times to people. It's like, listen, I'm not the reader for everybody. This is the way I read. There are other people who are going to be way more suited for you. There are so many different flavors, perspectives. So that's why, again, I love getting other people's perspectives, but
Yeah.
it is going to sound different. We are going to have different things that mean different things to us as readers, and also to
That's
the
true.
people sitting across from us.
Yeah. Do a party. Yeah. Anybody out there listening, like do readings for more than one person in a row, like several people if you can. You'll find that happens. My
Yes.
funniest moments was at one of these parties, and I was giving readings, and most people were like really blown away. Never had a tarot reading before. Couldn't believe how accurate it was. Great information. Thank you so much. Get to this one lady. I do her reading. She goes, "So you're a guidance counselor?" Like, that was dumb. So I was just like, that's just how I read. Here's your money back.
People don't you
Yeah.
think though, people have a lot of misconceptions about tarot and about
Yeah.
tarot readers. I just did a podcast episode with Michael Herkus, he's the Glam Witch, talking about the misconceptions. And I mean, it's really interesting. Some people think you got to be 100% accurate, or you're going to see everything in the future, that you know everything, that you know what color underwear they're wearing, that you can read their minds. I mean, all these goofy things. So
Yeah.
I think that also with the way tarot and tarot readers are portrayed in popular media, we have to educate people because they have those images. So when they sit down at the table and suddenly we're not telling them their middle name and the color of their underwear, some people are very disappointed. Very disappointed.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah. I have had, oh man, some of my favorites ever are the ones that sit down. They tell you want to read. Okay, what's your question? Now, I don't have a question. Just read my cards. And then they get all stone faced and stare you down. You start shuffling, like, so how are you today? Good. And you're just staring at the cards while you shuffle.
Yes.
like they're just trying to block
they're
any kind
afraid
of
you're
thing you
gonna
could read from
cheat.
them.
They're afraid
Yeah.
you're going to quote unquote cheat. The one thing I used to hate, I don't read for the public anymore, but I would hate when somebody would sit at the table and says, I don't want to tell you too much. And it would be like, how cheesy is that? That'd be like going to the damn doctor and saying, well, I'm not going to tell you my symptoms. Guess what's wrong with me? I mean, no one's trying to quote unquote cheat. Just tell me what you're here for, so I'm not wasting your time. Now, let me tell you, when I get a reading, I get 2 readings a year. I get a reading from Sam Reynolds and I get a reading from Ann Orderly. They're 2 astrologers.
Nice.
What I always do is I go in there with a list of what I want to talk about, because I don't want my time wasted talking about my love life. You do not know how many readers want to talk about my love life. My love life is not that interesting. I've been with the man 30 years. There's nothing scandalous. I mean, I think people think I got something scandalous going on. Like, this is the most non-scandalous relationship ever. I never ask about that. And so I've learned as a reader, but also as a customer, you got to tell the reader where you want to focus, or you're going to be off in this wild goose chase learning about your love life when that's not what you're here for.
Yeah.
Let them know. Don't mess around. You're going to get a reading that you want with information you can use, rather than the stuff that you don't care about.
Yeah. Most love life readings can be boiled down to trust issues anyway. I found that to be true in my experience. Although I had this one pair of one definitely was having some sort of affair, and it was coming out in the cards. I didn't want to say it out loud because she's got her sister standing in the room right there. And I'm like, you know, this really should be private before I make any sort of suggestion of what I'm thinking right now. Oh no, we know it. We tell each other everything. Well, it turns out they don't. So so we get through all that fun and games, and then the next one sits down, and I'm getting this feeling like the way the cards are reading out. And I remembered it was because of the deck I was using at the time. The Page of Cups is the one that stood out to me, and it kept sticking to me. I'm like, it just struck me as really feminine all of a sudden. And I just said, I'm going to ask you something. Again, a little personal, just to get clarity here, and you can tell me no. You want me? She's like, oh no, we definitely know everything about each other now. I'm like, are you getting interested in women? You know, like, and Her sister, standing behind me about 3 feet, goes, "Are you?" And that's not like how readings usually go for me. It's just one of those weird things that pops out, so that's one time when the love life readings came
Yeah.
out really memorable and interesting to me. They weren't
It
just
wanted to
that.
get your attention,
Yeah,
or
that
her
was fun.
attention, or her sister's attention.
Yeah. Yeah, those were fun. Oh man, so little time, so many fun questions to ask. So let's say we're getting into the spooky season, right? It's the end of September now. It's going to be Halloween soon. Is there a particular way you could look to astrology? See how I want to say this. Look at astrology in the current space weather, as it were. I don't know exactly what you call that in astrology, to determine, yes, this is a great time to go find hauntings and ghosts. No, this is a terrible time to go find hauntings and ghosts.
The best time for hauntings and ghosts is Scorpio season. It's the best
Scorpio
time.
season.
Oh, yes. And this is why, again, I'm the defender of all Scorpios. Scorpio season is so, so good for that. If there is ever a time that you want to explore the veil between the worlds, Scorpio season, also when the moon is in Scorpio. And here's the deal, Scorpio is associated with death. And it's also associated with psychic things. So a lot of people who have strong Scorpio tendencies do, first of all, a lot of them are very psychic. And a lot of them do have mediumship ability, all of that. And they all tend to like some of that dark crap, So if you got some Scorpio and you listen, I got a moon in Scorpio. We like things with an edge, and so they're naturally drawn towards things like that. But Scorpio season, or when the moon is in Scorpio, those are the perfect times for you to get your hauntings or all of that stuff happening. That's the time.
All right.
For it.
When is the next moon in Scorpio? Do you know that off the back
It's
of your hand?
tonight and tomorrow.
It's tonight and
Yes.
tomorrow.
Let me double check. I got my mini ephemeris right here. Astrologers,
shit.
I've got ephemerises all over the house, and I've got this little baby one. So it's let me see, what day are we looking at? Today's the 27th. Oh my god, I have to the moon is in Scorpio tonight. It just went into Scorpio not that long ago. And it is going to be in Scorpio until Thursday the 29th. Actually, it's going to be in Sagittarius Friday the 30th at 12:03 a.m. Eastern time, to be precise.
Okay.
So that's when that kicks in, and I mean, yeah. And then we've got, of course, our sun goes into Scorpio on the 23rd of October. So from the 23rd of October until November 22nd, we got all that Scorpio juice. That is the best time for all things spooky.
All right. Yeah, I'll have to hurry up and get this published so people
And
know.
Halloween happens during Scorpio season. Of course. Of course. I mean, it just makes sense to me. I'm like, listen, whoever came up with that Halloween, they knew exactly when to place it.
This was not an accident, folks.
This was not an accident.
You heard it here first. Let's see here. Where should we skip to? In your book, you talk about intuition, and we kind of touched on that with psychic stuff too. And it's kind of like the third and final piece of what you're putting together in this current book. So where does intuition come into play? Obviously, trying to puzzle out what exactly these charts and the cards are saying, but why separate it out? What makes it more important as its own subject?
Well, here's the thing. The reason why, first of all, I want to put intuition in the book, because really good tarot readers and astrologers aren't just looking at, this is what this card means. This is what your moon in Capricorn means. They're also feeling out exactly what that means for you. They're feeling out how these cards, let's put it this way. Let's pretend you and I have the exact same astrology chart and the exact same tarot cards. Now, a good reader is going to be intuitive enough not to say, well, you both got this and this is what it means. But they're going to feel what that means to you as an individual. So intuition is all about trusting your feeling. And Bernadette Brady wrote a book, The Eagle and the Lark, which is really about, the mathematical part of astrology, but using intuition with it makes it soar. And that's why it's so important for tarot and astrology to really develop your intuition and to trust it. The best readers that I've ever worked with, astrologers or tarot readers, have always been in tune with their intuition. The worst readings I've ever gotten are the ones that go by the book. This is what the book means. Now it's all mechanical. This is mechanical now. And so intuition is very, very essential in being an effective astrologer and tarot reader. And intuition, the other thing, if it stands on its own, let's say you're not into tarot or astrology. Let's say that's not your thing. Instead, you're into like football and true crime. Okay, that's your jam. Well, your intuition is still at work. You know, maybe you're feeling a certain way about a team. Maybe you've got a certain feeling about a situation. And we certainly want to make sure we follow that, because your intuition can save your life. Your intuition can help you know when to make good decisions, when to go and say yes to something. And when you are really fully trusting your intuition, I mean, it does a lot for you. So and again, remember, I grew up with psychic parents. Not my dad. My dad's not psychic at all. But my mother, no, dad wasn't psychic at all. Poor dad. No. Dad did not have any intuition at all. He was checked out. I don't know what was on with him. But, you know, growing up with that, it is a natural thing. I think most of us have it except Dad. And, you know, we just have to like learn how to trust it. We have to learn how to trust it. And when we do, I mean, one of the stories I shared in my other book, Astrology for Real Life, is about how it can save your life. There's a book by Gavin de Becker called The Gift of Fear. I always tell everyone, read that book. Read that book.
Essential reading for
read
life.
It.
So
because
good.
it tells about fear and intuition and how important it is for keeping you safe. And many, many years ago, this is a true story, when I was a bright young thing, I was hanging out, and there was this certain guy who was hitting on me. And, you know, I've got a certain type, and he met some of the criteria. I thought, okay, you got a long blonde hair, you're super skinny. Okay, this is looking like it might be my thing. But something was off. Something was off. And that's the one thing I'm like, you know what? You're pretty funny. And that's the other criteria I love. Funny is important. But something's not right here. And I'm like, look, you and I are just going to be friends. I'm hung up on somebody else. And which was true at the time. But I'm like, I'm going to leave this guy alone. And so the guy and I became friends. We're good friends. We loved hanging out once in a while. He was really super funny. And then I ran into him in the park one time. And he was really mad at his girlfriend. He says, oh my God, she's going to kick me out because you got a girlfriend. And I'm like, well, you'll find a place to live. Don't worry about it. You know, you've got a lot of friends here. Didn't think much of it. And a week later, it was front page news. He murdered her. He cut her body up into bits, boiled the flesh off the bones, put the bones in a bucket with kitty litter, and put it in some bus terminal.
Whoa.
It was a really violent, terrible front page news crime. And I remember being floored because he had always been kind of like a gentle hippie. I was floored by that part.
Yeah.
But I was also floored by my instincts. They were picking up on something, and I didn't ignore it. And so many times we ignore our instincts, and then we think, I should have went for that job, or damn it, I should have asked that person for their number, or maybe I should have avoided that creepy person. So many times your intuition's always operating. And a really good example, look at kids. Kids don't have the learned experience. They're all intuition. And for example, if a little kid says, I don't like a certain person, you don't tell that kid, well, you got to go hug them anyways. No, if they're feeling something here, let's pay attention. There's something off. They're not comfortable with this person. There's a reason why. Kids are all intuition. All intuition. Yeah. They lose it in time because we teach them to reason it out. Oh, it's not logical. Oh, you got a big imagination. That's not imagination. That's your intuition. It's trying to help you. It works for you.
Yeah. I think we drum that intuition out of our kids, teaching them social compliance. You know?
Yes. And that's dangerous stuff. When I was about 3 years old, I had an aunt, and my mother, this aunt was really crazy about me because I was really precocious. You know, I like to sing and dance. I could read by the time I was 2. So I was like a really bright little girl. And so this aunt was kind of gung-ho on me. And one day she came over and she goes, you're my girl. I said, I'm not your girl. I'm mom's girl. This woman was so offended. My mom didn't do anything, though. My mom just let me do whatever I said and be as sassy as I want. And that's a good thing. It's teaching a kid, you're honoring your boundaries, because she was creepy. She was creepy and weird. And she was, glomming onto me. I didn't like that. And my mother let me honor that boundary. And that is so important. Kids need to hear that. If you don't feel cool with this person, that's fine. You don't have to hug them. That kid needs to get their intuition honored. Maybe they're not being a brat. Maybe they actually feel something weird about this person.
Right. It's a good point. Very safe, very, very good point. One I think people need to pay extra special attention to.
Stop teaching your kids to always be nice to everybody. That doesn't mean you teach them to be a bully, but if they don't feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, let's honor that for a minute. Let's honor it. Let's talk about it. What's going on? Why are you feeling that?
Yeah, don't forget that applies to you too. I think that's important to remember. Yeah, because you are that kid that got it drummed out of you. We all are, and the older that we are, I think the worse it is, just based on how we were raised. So, yeah, that's a really important point. Something else that comes immediately to mind based on that kind of subject, based on intuition and things like that, leading to social compliance. I've been a lifelong martial artist, and one of the greatest books I've ever read is Meditations on Violence by a guy named Rory Miller. And I think it should be required reading by all martial artists, because if you're in any kind of training that could lead to hurting another human being, there's going to be ramifications for that, legal, psychological, social, and everything. And it's a great book on preparing you for those sorts of consequences. The one thing I remember Rory talking about, I don't remember if it was in that book or somewhere else, I just remember it came from him, was talking about secondary crime scenes.
Ooh.
Talk about a dark turn. Saying that, like they call secondary crime scenes by another name. That's where they found the body. That kind of thing. So he's talking about, like, you never get taken to another place. Never be so compliant with someone. Trust your intuition. Trust your fear. Never be taken to another place like that. Welcome to Weird Web Radio, folks. We are now talking about true crime.
It's a Moon and Scorpio night, though. And Moon and Scorpio, I told you, they like to go into those dark places with an edge. So am I surprised that our conversation took a funky tone tonight? I mean, we've been all over the map tonight, but we talked about some kind of heavy things and funny things at the same time. And that's so Scorpio. So
we've had a real conversation. That's what I love about it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, before we wrap up the regular portion, skipping through all of the things I thought about talking about, there's one of my non-negotiables I like to get into, and that is folklore, local folklore. So somewhere that you've lived, or somewhere that or where you do live now, just somewhere where you actually have experience in the community. What is something that other people could travel to experience, whether it is a local landmark or seeing an important learning about a historical figure, but weird, that crazy ass haunted place down the road thing, like.
Well, first of all, I'm in Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee, we've got plenty of haunted, creepy things here. Wisconsin's got lots of creepy things. I mean, this is the place for Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer. Ugh. So there's that new Dahmer thing. I can't watch it. But there's also this thing, and I'm like, what is that thing called? It's like the High Dag, or what is it? I got to find it now. Now you're getting me thinking about this. It's like a legendary thing. What is that thing called? The Hodag. The Hodag. No, this is Wisconsin life. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So you've got to look up the legend of the Hodag, Hodag. And the Hodag is, it's a vicious beast. It's this great black hodag with spikes all the way down. I'm reading this. The entire length of its body, and a fistful of needle-sharp pointed spears at the end of its tail, and fangs that would rival a saber-toothed tiger, and it could rip out the belly of the biggest bear. So anyhow, there's a legend in Wisconsin about the hodag, and you can go see pictures of it. And it's kind of like a goofy, fun thing, but that's one of our legends. And also here in Wisconsin, I mean, we've got a haunted hotel, the Pfister Hotel. Mr. Pfister is hanging out in that hotel. You can feel his vibe. And then, of course, we've got two very famous murderers here too. And there's
Right.
certainly a lot of weird energy around those places. In
I
fact,
bet.
the new Dahmer movie that's out, I only watched one episode. I said, I can't watch this. It's too much.
Yeah, I'm not
But
watching.
they got it accurate. In fact, the bar that he used to go to, I used to go to that bar once in a while. It was so accurate. That's why I had to stop watching. I'm like, okay, done. We don't need to see it. It's creeping me out. But you know,
Yeah.
when things like that, tragedies happen in areas, there's always some kind of a vibe left from it. There's always some kind of a vibe. In fact, when I told you about the story about the guy who murdered his girlfriend, I was in the building after that murder, and the building had just the weirdest feeling to it. It was definitely haunted with some stuff. So anytime there's something like that, something with a tragedy, we always feel that energy. And then we got the Hodag, which
You
is
got the Hodag.
the legend of the Hodag here in Wisconsin, or Mr. Pfister at the Pfister Hotel, you know.
Yeah.
So we got a couple different things going on here, some creepy and some kind of fun.
All right. Milwaukee's not too far away. I've not been to Milwaukee yet. I've always wanted to go. I'm a lifelong Cub fanatic. I live in Illinois.
Oh, we're very close then.
Yeah, and we call where the Brewers play Wrigley North.
Yes. I've heard that. And you know, we've got names for Illinois people too up here.
I bet you do.
Yeah. Well, you know, also I'm going to be actually in Illinois this week, and my girlfriend I'm going to go see the Prince Immersive Experience. I'm super excited about that.
Nice.
Big Prince fan, so cannot wait. Chicago's had it all to themselves, but we're going.
Yeah, good. I hope you guys have a great time. All right, I think we've come to a good place to stop the regular portion of the show. Is there something that I should have asked or something you'd like to talk about that I did not cover?
Ooh, something you'd like me to ask. Well,
Yeah.
gee, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think we've covered a lot. I mean, we went all over the place here. We went around the world. We went to some dark places, Lonnie.
Yeah. The minute you said Saturn, it was off to the races.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a question instead.
Okay, that's fair.
That's what we're going to do. Okay,
All right.
so I am a food fanatic. I love, love, love to cook. I'm also a music fanatic. So I want to know, what is your favorite thing to eat, and who's your favorite band?
Oh, boy. I mean, I love food, too, and I have got the body to prove it. I always joke, I used to be sexy. Now I'm fat and sexy.
There's more to love.
Favorite food just comes down to probably where I'm at. But honestly, one of my favorite things to do in the world is go anywhere I go. I'm looking for the local bar and grill, the local one, because I want to find out what kind of burger they have. Love a great burger, and you only find them in bars, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And as far as bands go, it depends on my mood. The greatest band ever, in my opinion, is Tool.
Aha. I see where this is going. A dark place.
All praise and hail their names, because I love Tool. That is the temple of music. But if I just want to chill, I don't want to listen to them. If I just want to chill, I like what I call white boy reggae music. Sublime and stuff like that. But Dirty Heads is my favorite band in that genre. So
awesome.
It just depends where I'm at mentally.
Awesome. I just got to know these things, because food and music are, next to tarot and astrology, my other two big things.
Yeah, I dig it. What's your favorite food and favorite band? Gotta turn the table.
Favorite food is Vietnamese food. Okay. And there's one dish, it's a noodle dish with charbroiled pork. I think if I'm on my deathbed, that is my last supper. It's got to be that. And my favorite band is not really a band, it's a musician, would be probably Bowie, because Bowie had such a profound impact on me when I was young. And so I would definitely say Bowie. Bowie, I mean, when Bowie died, I cried. It was tragic. Yeah. So got to be Bowie. And of course, I do like a lot of the modern music. I love Kendrick Lamar. I mean, Kendrick Lamar is, I think, a poet, and I think he's brilliant. I love a lot of the modern hip hop and rap. So I listen to a lot of that. I also love a lot of old school punk. Grew up on the Sex Pistols, the Clash, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. But now I'm like you. It depends on my mood.
It does. Yeah.
That's
it really
what it's all about. And some
Yeah.
days only Leonard Cohen will do.
There
Only
you go.
Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, only. Yeah. Yeah, if I'm on death row, my meal is bacon cheeseburger from Guido's, downtown Champaign, Illinois. I'm
Ooh.
telling you, everyone out there, you're welcome, Guido's.
That's where to go.
Just
Ooh.
get in there and order what I told you to get. No ands, ifs, or buts.
You're making me hungry, Lonnie.
Right? All right. That brings us to the end of this show. If you want to hear the rest of this conversation, folks, you know what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to go to patreon.com/weirdwebradio. Go to weirdwebradio.com. Click join the membership. Theresa, where can people find you?
Well, people can always find me at my website, thetarotlady.com. That will give you all the information about what I'm up to. I've got my blog and podcasts and all of that housed there. I also am on Patreon too. You can find me on patreon.com/thetarotlady. That's where I do all my teaching. I'm going to be retiring in a couple of years, so this is going to be the best chance. Oh, I know. I'm planning totally retirement, believe me. So you want to study with me, you want to learn how to read like I do, tarot and astrology. That's where I do all my teaching. And I'm also on social media as the Tarot Lady, and I'm very friendly. I love Twitter. It's my favorite, but I'm also on Instagram doing a live forecast Monday through Friday. So come and join me. Hang out.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you again for being here. This has been awesome and fun talking to you. And you just smiled and nodded. I like it.
Oh, I thought you were... I thought you were like cutting me off there. It looked like you were doing something.
No. I love it.
Oh my God. Y'all,
things...
I can see Lonnie and Lonnie can see me. So if you're listening, it looked like he was like shutting this thing off. It's been an honor to be here, Lonnie. It's been great fun. Oh my God. You are hilarious. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Well, there's more for us, and everyone else, you know where you're going to have to go. All right. Stay weird out there, my friends. And now it is bonus audio time. We're rolling in laughing.
Oh my
Theresa
God.
Reed, welcome to my Patreon portion of the show.
Thank you for having me again, Lonnie. I promise not to have a deer in the headlights look.
That was
because
great.
This is still running and we're going and I'm with it.
It doesn't stop. Okay. So first question here is always the same. What famous person's resting place do you most want to visit? Do you want to hear how they just answered that question? What famous person's resting place would you most like to visit? That and many others, including what they think about the afterlife, what they may or may not do in cemeteries, what are their traditions and magical practices that have to do with the dead, folklore that surrounds their homes, and so much more, available for only $5. $5 a month. Even if I make more than one episode in a month, it's still just $5 a month at patreon.com/weirdwebradio, or go to weirdwebradio.com and click join the membership. You can find me on Instagram at weirdwebradio. You can find me on Facebook as Weird Web Radio, or come join the new, fun and exciting Weird Web Radio Facebook group. Thank you again for being here. Stay weird out there, my friends.